while the Iran-Israel conflict is generating all the weekend drama and again into today, what's most important for Australia, almost certainly, well, with this face-to-face meeting now confirmed for this week between our Prime Minister and the United States President. Now, it's not over-dramatising things to say. It's not just the AUKUS nuclear deal, which will be potentially at stake, but the entire US security partnership, our ANZUS foundation, that's at the heart of our defence and foreign policy and has been for 7 decades. Today, Anthony Albanese insisted that it would be a good discussion because, he says, Australia was pulling its weight on defence.
To that, there's all of the support that we give to the United States and with our defence relationships, including fuel reserves in the Northern Territory, including the presence of US forces in Darwin as well.
Look, it's true. Our defence spending will glacially move up to 2.3% of GDP in a decade's time, and that we do host US bases at Pine Gap and elsewhere, and 1,000 Marines in Darwin. But that spending, the 2.3, is way, way, way too low. And those facilities at Pine Gap and elsewhere, well, they're not new to the relationship. Now, OK, it's possible we could become a big supplier of strategic minerals and rare earths to the US, as you heard the Prime Minister say, but that is unlikely because it's not just about mining them, it's also the need to process them here. Now, currently, most of that's done in China because their environmental standards are much more lax than ours. Besides, it's not what we think of ourselves, but what the Trump administration thinks of us that counts, and so far, it seems, they don't think much. It was only a couple of weeks back that the US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth publicly told us that we must lift our defence spending to some 3.5% of GDP.
NATO members are pledging to spend 5% of their GDP on defence, even Germany. So it doesn't make sense for countries in Europe to do that while key allies in Asia spend less on defence in the face of an even more formidable threat.
Now, whatever soothing words might emerge from the encounter between Trump and Albanese expected on Wednesday morning our time, it's hard to imagine the President not reiterating the 3.5% demand with his typical emphasis. And let's face it, Donald Trump is nothing if not blunt. And his one consistent message as a first-term president, and again now in this term, has been that allies must do more if they expect alliances to last.
You're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you?
But we have thousands of people that want to come into our country, and they're white farmers, and they feel that they're going to die in South Africa.
Then there's the whole issue of Taiwan. Now, no one really knows whether the US would defend Taiwan against communist China, either blockading the nation or attempting to invade. But if it did, it would expect, perhaps demand even, Australian help. After all, the ANZUS Treaty, and I mentioned that before, it's the bedrock of our national security. It states that in the event of an attack, quote, an armed attack on any of the parties would then act together to meet the common danger. Now, it's pretty close to NATO's Article 5, and it's about as strong a wording you'll find in any treaty of mutual assistance. When pressed on this very point today, Anthony Albanese was his usual evasive self, always careful never to mention China.
Donald Trump and America be confident that Australia would stand shoulder to shoulder with them in the event of a major conflict in the Indo-Pacific, and in the event that China invades Taiwan, or by whatever means that happens?
Well, the role of AUKUS and the role of nation-states in our region, including our partners, is for peace and security in the region. That's what we want. And Australia's a trusted partner to promote peace and security in our region.
Someone's got to tell him to update his briefing notes, because I tell you what, ANZUS is not AUKUS. And it's precisely this whole absence of assurance of military solidarity against Beijing that's likely prompted the United States to order a review of whether AUKUS is consistent with Trump's America First agenda. Given that America can't build enough submarines for itself, why would it give us 3 without the confidence that they'd be used to help America, if required, under the ANZUS treaty? Now, his supporters will say the PM's matured and mellowed from his undergraduate lefty days, but there's still plenty of others in his caucus who would prefer to be an economic colony of China than a military ally of the United States. Does anyone think the Prime Minister would agree to lift military spending to 3% of GDP and beyond when this was the precise proposal that he ridiculed during the election campaign when it came from the opposition?
We're going to increase our defence spend to 2.5% of GDP within 5 years, and out to 10 years it'll be at 3%.
I find it extraordinary that you try to get a headline with a big number and then there's nothing of what the big number should be invested in.
Does anyone think the PM would give even private assurances about Taiwan when the whole tenor of his prime ministership so far has been about avoiding upsetting Beijing, almost to the point of appeasement? Here he was when the Chinese Navy conducted unannounced live fire exercises off the New South Wales coast.
China issued, in accordance with practice, an alert that it would be conducting these activities, including the potential use of live fire. It's outside of Australia's exclusive economic zone.
Here he was too when the Chinese Navy deliberately injured Australian naval divers.
And this is the sort of incident that I've spoken about when I addressed the Shangri-La dialogue in June of why we need communication guardrails and we need to avoid a reckless event such as this.
Now, I know China's our biggest trade partner, but what is more important in these challenging times? Selling a few more lobsters and a few boxes of Grange to Beijing, or maintaining Australia's freedom and independence? Sooner or later, we actually might have to choose between our main trade partner and our main security partner. Most likely because Beijing will force us to. Now, if and when that time comes, we won't be choosing America over China, but democracy over dictatorship. In the meantime, the best way to avoid the dreadful prospect of war over Taiwan is to persuade Beijing that it's a war they might not win. That's peace through strength, not peace through appeasement. And that means standing shoulder to shoulder with the US president, even under this president, who doesn't think we're doing enough, and even under this Prime Minister, who wants us to do even less.